Hey guys, think you could handle life as a medieval nun? Think again. Picture this. You're waking up in the middle of the night, freezing cold, to chant prayers in a stone chapel so drafty you can see your own breath. Your wool robe smells like a wet dog that's been rolled in onions, and it never gets washed. The communal toilet is a wooden bench with a hole over a pit, and the stench drifts up through the entire building like someone's cooking rotten eggs for breakfast. Your knees are covered in bruises from kneeling on hard stone floors 6 times a day, and your stomach's growling because dinner was a bowl of grey porridge that tasted like soggy cardboard mixed with pond water. If you think your morning alarm is bad, try getting awakened at 2 in the morning by a large woman ringing a handbell right next to your ear. So if you enjoyed this so far, hit that like button and subscribe for more. I'm genuinely curious to know where you're watching from, so leave me a comment telling me where you are and what time it is right now. So let's step into the world of a medieval nun and find out exactly why you wouldn't last a single week. The very first thing that would break you is the schedule. You think your daily routine is rough? Imagine this. You're going to bed when it's still light outside in summer, around 8 in the evening. Not because you want to, but because there's nothing else to do. No candles to waste, no screens to scroll through, just darkness and the sound of 20 other women snoring, coughing, and turning over on straw mattresses that crunch like cornflakes every time someone moves. Then, just when you finally drifted off, a bell rings. It's 2 in the morning. Time for matins. That's the first prayer service of the day. You drag yourself out of bed in complete darkness, fumble for your robe, and shuffle down a freezing corridor to the chapel. Your feet are numb. The stone floor feels like walking on a frozen lake. Everyone's half asleep, mumbling prayers in Latin that you barely understand, swaying on the spot like passengers on a delayed commute. Then you go back to bed for maybe 2 hours. Just as you're getting comfortable again, another bell. It's still dark outside. Time for Lauds. That's prayer service number 2. You're back in the chapel, kneeling on stone, chanting. Your knees are already sore from yesterday. They're going to get worse. Much worse. This pattern continues all day long. Prime at 6 in the morning, terce at 9, sext at noon, none at 3 in the afternoon, vespers at 6 in the evening, compline at 8 before bed. That's 8 prayer services. 8 times a day you're stopping whatever you're doing, walking to the chapel and spending at least half an hour kneeling and chanting. Your entire day is chopped into tiny pieces. You never get more than a few hours to focus on anything. Imagine trying to do your job, but every 90 minutes someone rings a bell and you have to drop everything, walk to a cold room, and sing the same songs over and over while your legs go numb. And it's not like you can just skip one. Oh no, missing a service isn't an option. There's always someone watching. The prioress keeps track. If you're late, you get a lecture. If you're absent, you're doing penance. That means extra prayers, or skipping meals, or scrubbing floors on your hands and knees while everyone else eats. The system is designed so there's no escape. You can't call in sick unless you're practically unconscious. Got a headache? Tough. Got the runs from last night's dodgy cabbage stew? Better clench and get to chapel. The routine is relentless. It grinds you down day after day. There's no weekend, no holidays. Christmas just means longer services. Every single day is the same. Bell, chapel, bell, chapel, bell, chapel. Your entire existence revolves around this schedule. After a month, you'd be a zombie. After a year, you'd forget what it felt like to sleep past dawn. Now let's talk about the cold. Medieval buildings are not insulated. The convent is made of stone. Thick walls, tiny windows. No heating except for one fireplace in the communal room, and that's only lit on special occasions because firewood costs money. Your cell, that's your bedroom, is a narrow space barely bigger than a cupboard. Stone walls, stone floor, one tiny window with no glass. Just wooden shutters that don't quite close properly. In winter, the wind howls through the gap. Frost forms on the inside of the walls. You sleep under one thin wool blanket that smells like mildew and something died in it last spring. Your breath makes clouds in the air. Your nose is so cold it hurts. You curl up into a ball trying to keep warm, but it's impossible. The cold seeps into your bones. Your fingers are stiff. Your toes are numb. You're wearing the same wool robe you wear during the day because that's all you've got. No pajamas, no extra layers. Just you, the robe, and a blanket that's about as effective as a tea towel. When you wake up for matins at 2 in the morning, the shock of leaving that blanket is like jumping into a freezing lake. You'd rather stay in bed and risk eternal punishment than face that cold corridor. But you don't have a choice. You shuffle along with the others, everyone silent and miserable, teeth chattering. The chapel is even worse. It's a big open space with a high ceiling. Cold air pools at floor level like invisible fog. You kneel on the stone, and it's like kneeling on a block of ice. Within minutes, your knees are aching, your feet are throbbing. You can't feel your fingers. You're supposed to be focusing on prayer, but all you can think about is how much you want to be warm. Just for 5 minutes. Just once. The other nuns seem used to it. They've been doing this for years. Their faces are blank. They chant on autopilot. But you're new, and every minute feels like an hour. By the time the service ends, you've lost all sensation below the waist. You hobble back to bed, but you can't get warm. You lie there shivering until the next bell rings. Let's move on to the food, or rather, the lack of it. You're not getting 3 square meals a day. You're getting 2. Breakfast doesn't exist. You wake up, go to matins, go to Lord's, go to Prime, and then finally around 9 in the morning, you get your first meal. It's called dinner, even though it's basically brunch. You file into the refectory, which is a long, cold hall with wooden benches and tables. Everyone sits in silence. One nun stands at a lectern and reads aloud from a religious text while you eat. You're not allowed to talk, not a word. If you need something, you have to use hand signals. There's a whole system of gestures. 1 finger means bread, 2 fingers means water. A waving motion means, please pass the salt, except there's no salt, because salt is expensive. The food itself is spectacularly boring. Bread, obviously, but not the nice soft bread you're thinking of. This is dense, heavy, dark bread that tastes like sawdust and sits in your stomach like a brick. Pottage, which is a thick sludge made from whatever vegetables are available. Onions, cabbage, beans, turnips, all boiled together into a grey mush. It's served lukewarm because the kitchen is 3 corridors away and everything cools down on the journey. Sometimes there's cheese. Hard, crumbly, sharp cheese that smells like old socks. If you're lucky, there's fish on certain days. But it's not fresh fish. It's salted fish that's been sitting in a barrel for months. You have to soak it in water to make it edible, and even then it tastes like the sea had a fight with a shoe. No meat. Nuns don't eat meat except when they're seriously ill. No sugar. No spices, no flavour. Every meal tastes like punishment. And the portions are small. You're basically on a permanent diet. The idea is that fasting brings you closer to spiritual purity. In reality, it just makes you constantly hungry. You finish your bowl of pottage and you're still hungry. Your stomach rumbles all through sext. By the time none rolls around at 3 in the afternoon, You're lightheaded. You start fantasizing about food. Roast chicken, fresh bread, butter, cake, anything with taste. But you don't get any of that. You get your second meal of the day around 5 or 6 in the evening. It's called supper, and it's exactly the same as dinner. More bread, more pottage, maybe an apple if the orchard's doing well. Then nothing until 9 o'clock the next morning. You go to bed hungry. You wake up hungry. You spend your entire day thinking about food while pretending to focus on prayer. After a few weeks, you'd gnaw your own arm off for a bag of crisps. Let's talk about your daily work, because prayer isn't the only thing filling your time. Nuns have to earn their keep. The convent doesn't run on miracles. Someone has to cook, clean, tend the garden, make candles, repair clothes, and do 100 other chores. You're going to be doing hard physical labor every single day. No machines, no shortcuts. Everything is done by hand. Your hands are going to be wrecked. Blisters on your palms from scrubbing floors, calluses from digging in the garden, cuts from handling tools. Your nails are broken and dirty. There's no hand cream, no rubber gloves, just you, cold water, and whatever task you've been assigned. One of the worst jobs is laundry. Imagine washing clothes without a washing machine. Now imagine washing everyone's clothes. 20 nuns, all wearing thick wool robes, undergarments, veils and linens. Everything has to be soaked in big wooden tubs filled with cold water. You add lye soap, which is made from animal fat and ash. It smells rancid and it burns your skin. You pound the clothes with a wooden paddle to get the dirt out. Then you scrub them on a washboard until your knuckles are raw. Then you rinse them, wring them out by hand, and hang them up to dry. This takes hours. Your back aches from bending over the tubs. Your arms are trembling. Your hands are red and stinging. And when you're done, the clothes still smell faintly of sweat and onions because medieval soap isn't exactly heavy duty. But at least they're cleaner than before. Sort of. Kitchen duty is another nightmare. The kitchen is a hot, smoky room with a massive fireplace and a cauldron hanging over the flames. You're chopping vegetables with a knife that's been sharpened so many times, it's basically a sliver of metal. Onions make your eyes stream. Cabbage leaves are tough and need to be hacked apart. You're stirring the cauldron with a wooden paddle that's taller than you are. The smoke from the fire gets in your eyes and lungs. You're coughing and sweating. Your face is red. Your robe is damp. The heat is unbearable in summer. In winter, it's the only warm place in the entire building, so it's packed with nuns trying to thaw out. You can barely move without bumping into someone. Bread making is a whole ordeal. First, you grind the grain into flour using a hand mill. This is incredibly hard work. You're turning a heavy stone wheel for what feels like hours. Your shoulders burn, your wrists hurt. Then you mix the flour with water and yeast to make dough. You knead it until your arms are ready to fall off. Then you shape it into loaves and bake it in the big oven. The oven is basically a stone box heated by burning wood inside it. You have to rake out the hot coals, shove the loaves in, and then watch carefully so they don't burn. The heat is intense. You're sweating buckets, and all this for bread that tastes like cardboard. Gardening sounds peaceful, right? Wrong. The garden is where the convent grows vegetables, herbs, and maybe some fruit. It's a big plot of land that needs constant attention. Weeding, digging, planting, watering, harvesting. You're on your hands and knees in the dirt, pulling up weeds by the roots. Your back is killing you. The soil is hard and full of stones. You're using a basic spade that weighs a ton. Your hands are caked in mud. Insects are everywhere. Beetles, flies, worms, spiders. They crawl on your arms. They get in your hair. In summer, the sun beats down on your head. You're wearing a heavy wool robe and a veil. You're drenched in perspiration. Your face is bright red. You're dizzy from the heat. In autumn, the ground is muddy and slippery. You're sliding around, trying not to fall into the cabbage patch. In winter, the soil is frozen solid. You can barely get the spade into the ground. Your fingers are so cold they don't bend properly. Then there's the herb garden, which is supposed to be used for medicine. You're growing things like chamomile, sage, mint, and fennel. Sounds nice, but it's more work. You have to dry the herbs, store them properly, and make remedies when someone gets ill. Except you're not a trained herbalist. You're just following instructions from a worn-out book that's been passed down for generations. Half the time, the remedies don't work. Someone's got a cough? Give them a tea made from boiled weeds. Someone's got a headache? Rub some mint oil on their forehead and hope for the best. It's medieval healthcare, which is to say it's mostly guesswork and optimism. Let's not forget the endless cleaning. Stone floors get dirty. Dust and grime build up. You're scrubbing the floors on your hands and knees with a brush and a bucket of cold water. The brush is stiff and rough. It tears at your palms. The water sloshes everywhere. Your knees are bruised and aching. You're working your way down a long corridor, inch by inch. It takes all morning. And when you're done, it doesn't even look that much cleaner. But you do it anyway, because cleanliness is next to godliness, or so they keep telling you. The chapel floor is the worst. It's huge. It's always covered in muddy footprints from everyone tramping in and out 8 times a day. You scrub and scrub, and by the next service, it's dirty again. It's like painting a bridge that never ends. Candle making is another job. Candles are essential because they're the only source of light after dark. You're melting down lumps of tallow, which is animal fat. It smells atrocious, like old meat left out in the sun. You dip wicks into the melted fat over and over, building up layers until you have a candle. Your hands are covered in grease. The smell clings to your robe. You reek of it for days. The candles themselves don't burn cleanly. They smoke and sputter and give off a greasy stench. But they're better than sitting in total darkness, so you keep making them. Sewing and mending is a constant task. Clothes wear out quickly when you're doing physical labor all day. Robes get torn, veils get ragged, undergarments develop holes. You're sitting in the communal room with a needle and thread trying to patch things up. Except the thread is coarse and the needle is blunt. You're squinting because the light is terrible. Your eyes start to hurt. Your fingers are sore from pushing the needle through thick wool. And you're doing this in silence because talking during work hours is discouraged. You're just sitting there, surrounded by other nuns, all quietly sewing, the only sound the creak of benches and the occasional cough. Some convents have a scriptorium where nuns copy religious text by hand. Sounds better than scrubbing floors, right? Think again. You're sitting at a desk in a cold room with terrible light. You're hunched over a piece of parchment, carefully copying Latin text with a quill pen. The ink is handmade from soot and gum. It smells weird and it stains everything. If you make a mistake, you have to scrape it off with a knife and start again. Your hand cramps up from holding the quill. Your neck aches from leaning forward. Your eyes are strained from focusing on tiny letters. And you're doing this for hours. One page can take an entire day. The work is painstaking and boring. One tiny smudge and you've ruined the whole thing. You're terrified of making mistakes because parchment is expensive. After a few hours, your brain goes numb. You start making errors. You have to stop and rest, but there's always more work waiting. Now, let's discuss the absolute lack of privacy. You have none. 0. Your cell is just big enough for a narrow bed and maybe a small chest for your belongings. but the door doesn't lock. Anyone can walk in at any time. The prioress does regular inspections to make sure you're not hiding anything sinful. Like what? A second blanket? A piece of fruit you saved from dinner? She's checking that you're living simply and humbly, which means you're not allowed personal possessions beyond the absolute basics. No decorations, no keepsakes, no letters from home, nothing that might make you comfortable or remind you of your old life. The communal areas are packed with people all the time. You're never alone. Ever. The dormitory is full of beds crammed next to each other. You can hear every snore, every cough, every fart. Someone's always rustling their straw mattress. Someone else is grinding their teeth. Another one's muttering in her sleep. You're trying to rest, but it's impossible with all the noise. And the smell. 20 women in one room with no ventilation and no baths. The air is thick with the stench of unwashed bodies and stale breath. It's like sleeping in a gym locker that hasn't been cleaned in a decade. The refectory is the same. Long tables packed with nuns all eating in silence while someone reads aloud. You're crammed onto a bench shoulder to shoulder with others. There's no personal space. Someone's elbow is in your ribs. You're trying to eat your pottage without spilling it, but the bench is crowded, and every time someone shifts, you get jostled. The communal room where you do handiwork is equally packed. Nuns everywhere, all sewing or spinning or mending. You're sitting so close to the next person you can smell what they had for dinner, which, to be fair, is the same thing you had for dinner. But still, even prayer time offers no escape. You're in the chapel with everyone else, all kneeling in rows. You're supposed to be communing with the divine, but mainly you're just trying not to faint from hunger or cold. The nun next to you has a persistent cough. She's hacking away every few minutes. The nun behind you keeps sniffing. It's driving you mad. You want to scream. You want 5 minutes alone. Just 5 minutes where you're not surrounded by people. But it never happens. The only time you're truly alone is in the latrine, and even that's not guaranteed, because there's usually a queue. Let's talk about the vow of silence. You're not allowed to chat. Talking is restricted to certain times and places. During meals, total silence. During work, silence. During prayer, obviously, silence. You can speak briefly after compline in the evening, but only about practical matters. No gossip, no jokes, no complaining. Just quick exchanges about work assignments or who's doing what tomorrow. If you break the silence rule, you're punished. Penance again. More prayers or fasting or scrubbing something. This vow would destroy you. Humans are social creatures. We need to talk. We need to vent, to laugh, to share stories. Imagine going days without a proper conversation. You're surrounded by people, but you can't connect with them. You're lonely in a crowd. You start talking to yourself in your head. You replay old conversations from before you joined the convent. You make up imaginary dialogues just to keep your brain active. After a few months, you'd be desperate for someone to talk to. You'd break the silence rule just to hear your own voice. And then you'd be doing penance, which means more silence, which makes it worse. Bathing is almost non-existent. You're not taking a daily shower. You're not even taking a weekly shower. Baths are rare, maybe once a month if you're lucky, and even then it's not a relaxing experience. There's one big wooden tub in a cold room. Water has to be hauled from the well bucket by bucket and heated over the fire. This takes hours. By the time the bath is ready, the water's lukewarm at best. You strip off your robe, which is basically glued to your skin with sweat and grime. You step into the tub. The water's murky because several nuns have used it before you. You're bathing in someone else's dirt. The soap is harsh and scratchy. It doesn't lather. It just sits there like a greasy lump. You scrub yourself as best you can, but you don't feel clean. You feel damp and uncomfortable. Then you get out, dry yourself with a rough cloth that feels like sandpaper, and put the same dirty robe back on. Because you only have one robe. It doesn't get washed every time you bathe. It gets washed maybe once every few months. So you're clean for about 5 minutes, and then you're back to smelling like a barn. Your hair is another disaster. It's covered by your veil all the time, which means it's sweaty and greasy. You can't wash it properly. You can't brush it, because brushes are basic and painful. It gets tangled and matted. You probably have lice living in it. But you can't see it because mirrors are considered vanity. There are no mirrors in the convent. You have no idea what you look like. For all you know, you've got food in your teeth and dirt on your face. You'd never know. Your robe is made of wool. Thick, scratchy, undyed wool. It's the same robe every day. It's heavy and it doesn't breathe. In summer, it's like wearing a blanket in a sauna. You're drenched in perspiration. The wool clings to your skin. You develop rashes in places you didn't know you could get rashes. Under your arms, between your thighs, around your waist where the rope belt sits. The rashes are itchy and sore. There's no cream for it. You just have to endure. In winter, the robe is cold and damp. It doesn't keep you warm because it's soaked with moisture from the air and your own sweat. It's clammy and uncomfortable. You trade your eternal soul for a pair of cotton pajamas and a hoodie. Under the robe, you're wearing a basic linen shift. It's supposed to be an undergarment, but it's thin and worn out. It's got holes in it. It chafes. The linen is rough because it's been washed 1,000 times with harsh soap. It's not soft. It's not comfortable. It's just another layer of misery. You've also got a veil covering your head. It's pinned in place with sharp metal pins that dig into your scalp. If you move too quickly, they stab you. Your head itches constantly, but you can't scratch properly because the veil's in the way. You're basically wearing a cloth prison on your head all day every day. Shoes are another problem. You're not wearing nice supportive footwear. You're wearing basic leather shoes that are more like slippers. No arch support. No cushioning, just a thin sole between your feet and the stone floor. They wear out quickly. The leather cracks and splits. Your feet are always sore. You develop blisters on your heels. The blisters burst and then you're walking on raw skin. It's agony. In winter, your feet are freezing because the shoes don't keep out the cold. In summer, your feet are sweltering and they smell horrendous. You've got foot fungus growing between your toes. It's itchy and gross, but there's nothing you can do about it. No foot powder, no clean socks, just damp, smelly feet in broken shoes. Let's discuss illness. You're gonna get ill. Everyone does. Close quarters, poor hygiene, bad food, and constant cold mean that infections spread like wildfire. Someone gets a cough, and within a week, half the convent is coughing. You're hacking up stuff that tastes metallic. Your throat is raw. Your chest hurts. But you still have to attend all 8 prayer services. You still have to do your chores. There's no sick leave. You're only excused from duties if you're literally unable to stand. And even then, the care you receive is basic. You lie on your straw mattress in your freezing cell. Someone brings you a cup of herbal tea that tastes like dirty pond water. You're given plain bread to eat because your stomach's upset. That's it. That's medieval healthcare. You either get better on your own, or you don't. Let's move on to the hierarchy and rules. The convent isn't a free-for-all. There's a strict social order. At the top is the prioress or abbess. She's in charge. She makes all the decisions. She assigns jobs. She dishes out punishments. She's usually an older nun who's been there for decades. She's stern, humourless, and has seen every trick in the book. You're not getting away with anything. Below her are senior nuns who oversee different areas. One's in charge of the kitchen. Another manages the garden. Another supervises the scriptorium. They report to the prioress and make sure everyone's doing their jobs. Then there's you, at the bottom, the newest member, the one who gets all the worst tasks. You're expected to obey without question. If the prioress tells you to scrub the latrine, you scrub the latrine. If she tells you to copy a manuscript for 12 hours straight, you do it. There's no arguing, no negotiating, no asking why. You do what you're told, when you're told, without complaint. If you push back, you're seen as proud and disobedient. Pride is a sin. Disobedience is a sin. You're given extra penance to humble you. Maybe you have to prostrate yourself on the chapel floor during a service, lie face down on the cold stone while everyone else stands. It's humiliating. It's designed to break your spirit and remind you that you're nothing. The rules are endless and petty. Don't walk too fast. Don't walk too slow. Don't look people in the eye because that's bold. Don't look down because that's sullen. Don't smile too much because that's frivolous. Don't frown because that's ungrateful. Keep your hands folded at all times when you're not working. Don't fidget. Don't scratch. Don't yawn. Don't stretch. Basically, don't be a normal human being with normal human needs. You're supposed to be serene and pious at all times, even when you're exhausted, starving, and covered in itchy rashes. There's a rule about everything: how you walk, how you sit, how you hold your hands during prayer, how you bow when you enter the chapel, how low you bow, how long you hold the bow. Get it wrong and someone corrects you, not kindly, sharply, in front of everyone. You're constantly being watched and judged. It's like living under a microscope. Every tiny mistake is noted. After a while, you become paranoid. You second guess everything. Am I walking correctly? Are my hands folded right? Is my veil straight? You're so focused on following the rules that you can't focus on anything else. Penance becomes a regular part of your life. You're going to mess up. Everyone does. Maybe you dozed off during matins because you're exhausted. Maybe you complained about the food. Maybe you laughed at something during work, and laughter is seen as unseemly. Whatever it is, you're doing penance. Sometimes it's extra prayers. You're kneeling in the chapel for an additional hour chanting. Your knees are screaming. Sometimes it's fasting. You skip a meal. Your stomach's already growling and now it's worse. Sometimes it's physical labor. Scrub the floors, haul water, weed the garden. Whatever task is most unpleasant, that's your penance. The worst punishment is being excluded from communal activities. You eat alone. You work alone. You're shunned by the other nuns. Nobody speaks to you. Nobody looks at you. You're invisible. It's psychologically brutal. Humans are social creatures. Being deliberately isolated is torture. You'd almost rather be scrubbing floors on your knees. At least then you're still part of the group. Being cut off makes you feel worthless, like you don't exist. It messes with your head in ways you didn't think possible. Let's talk about the boredom. You'd think with all the chores and prayer services, there wouldn't be time to be bored. But there is, because it's the same thing every day. Same prayers, same pottage, same faces, same tasks. Nothing changes, nothing interesting happens. There's no entertainment, no books except religious texts, no music except hymns, no games, no outings. You're trapped inside the convent walls forever. The outside world continues without you. Seasons change, years pass, but your routine stays exactly the same. You start to lose track of time. One day blends into the next. Was it last week or last month that you scrubbed the chapel floor? You can't remember. The monotony is crushing. Your brain craves stimulation. You start noticing tiny details just to keep yourself occupied. The pattern of cracks in the stone wall, The way the light comes through the window at different times of day, the sound of rain on the roof. You memorize every inch of your surroundings because there's nothing new to look at. You replay memories from your old life over and over like a film. What you used to eat, where you used to go, who you used to talk to. Those memories start to fade. After a few years, your old life feels like a dream. Did you really used to have choices? Did you really used to sleep in past dawn? It seems impossible now. The lack of variety in food drives you slowly insane. It's pottage for dinner, pottage for supper, bread that tastes like dust, cheese that smells like feet, every single day. You fantasize about flavor, about biting into something sweet or spicy or tangy, about tasting something that isn't just bland mush. You'd commit minor crimes for a piece of roasted meat or a fresh pastry, but you're never getting those things. This is your diet now, forever. You start to hate pottage with a burning passion. The sight of it makes you want to cry, but you eat it anyway because the alternative is starving. Let's discuss the physical toll this life takes on your body. Your knees are destroyed. All that kneeling on hard stone wears away the cartilage. They ache constantly. They crack and crunch when you stand up. Climbing stairs is agony. You're hobbling around like someone twice your age. Your back is ruined from all the bending and lifting, hauling water buckets, scrubbing floors, digging in the garden. Your spine is constantly sore. You can't stand up straight. You can't get comfortable. Lying down on a straw mattress doesn't help because the mattress is lumpy and thin. You just shift from one uncomfortable position to another all night. Your hands are wrecked. Calluses, blisters, cuts, burns from the kitchen. Your fingers are stiff and swollen. Your nails are broken and dirty. You've got splinters embedded in your palms from handling rough wood. Your skin is dry and cracked because you're constantly working with water and harsh soap. There's no lotion. Your hands look like they belong to someone who's been doing manual labor for decades, and maybe they have been. Time moves strangely here. Your feet are a disaster. Blisters on top of blisters. Hard skin on your heels. Bruised toes from stubbing them on stone floors in the dark. Fungus between your toes. Your toenails are thick and yellow. You can barely walk by the end of the day. Every step hurts. But tomorrow, you'll be walking the same corridors, kneeling in the same chapel, standing in the same garden. Your feet never get a chance to heal. Your teeth are going bad. The bread is coarse and gritty. Chewing it wears down your enamel. Bits of grain get stuck between your teeth and rot there. Your gums are inflamed. You've got at least one cavity, probably more. Your breath smells terrible. Everyone's breath smells terrible. There's no such thing as dental hygiene. You rinse your mouth with water occasionally, but that's it. After a few years, you'll have gaps in your smile. Teeth just fall out. Chewing becomes difficult. You're gumming your pottage like an elderly person. Your skin is in bad shape. You've got rashes, sores, bruises, insect bites, and patches of dry, flaky skin. The wool robe rubs your skin raw in places. The cold air chaps your face and hands. You've got chilblains on your fingers and toes. They're red, swollen, and itchy. You've got spots on your face because your diet is terrible and you never wash properly. Your skin is greasy and grimy. You can feel the layer of dirt on your face. You'd love to scrub it off, but there's no time and no proper facilities. Now let's talk about the absolute tedium of the prayer services themselves. You'd think prayer would be a peaceful, meditative experience. It's not. It's repetitive, uncomfortable, and mind-numbingly boring. You're chanting the same Latin phrases over and over. The psalms, the hymns, the responses. After the first week, You've heard them so many times you could recite them in your sleep. And you do, because they're drilled into your brain. You wake up with hymns stuck in your head. You're humming them while you scrub floors. They're the soundtrack to your entire existence. The problem is, you don't really understand Latin. You've learned the words phonetically. You can chant them, but you don't know what half of them mean. You're just making sounds. Your mind wanders. You're standing in the chapel, mouth moving, but you're thinking about food, or how cold you are, or how much your knees hurt, or whether there's a flea biting your ankle right now. You're supposed to be connecting with the divine, but mainly you're just trying not to fall asleep standing up. The services are long. Matins can go on for an hour or more. You're standing, then kneeling, then standing again. Your legs are cramping. You shift your weight from foot to foot. The nun next to you notices and gives you a disapproving look. You freeze. You're not supposed to fidget. You're supposed to be still and reverent, but your body is screaming at you. Everything hurts. You're so tired you could cry. The priest's voice drones on. The words blend together into a meaningless hum. You zone out. Then you snap back to attention because everyone's bowing and you almost missed it. You bow quickly, nearly lose your balance, and catch yourself. Compline, the last service of the day, is particularly brutal because you're already exhausted. It's 8 in the evening. You've been up since 2 in the morning. You've worked all day. You've attended 7 other services. Your entire body is shutting down. You're swaying on your feet. Your eyelids are heavy. The chapel is dimly lit with a few candles. The flickering light is hypnotic. You're staring at the flame, watching it dance. Your vision blurs. You're drifting. Then someone nudges you because you're leaning too far to one side. You jerk awake. You've got to stay conscious for another 20 minutes. It feels impossible. The singing is another ordeal. You're expected to join in the hymns, but you're not a singer. You don't know the melodies that well. You're mumbling along, trying to match the notes. The nun next to you has a loud, sharp voice that pierces your skull. The nun behind you is off-key. It's a cacophony. It's not beautiful or uplifting. It's just noise. And you're contributing to it, adding your own tuneless mumbling to the mix. After an hour of singing, your throat is sore. Your voice is hoarse. You're coughing. But tomorrow, you'll do it all again. Let's discuss the lack of intellectual stimulation. You're not reading interesting books. You're not having deep philosophical discussions. You're not learning new skills. Your brain is atrophying. The only books available are religious texts, the same texts you've read 100 times. They're written in Latin, which you barely understand. You're copying them out by hand in the scriptorium, word by word, without really processing the meaning. It's mechanical. Your brain is on autopilot. You're not thinking. You're just copying. Conversation, when it's allowed, is shallow. You can talk about practical things. Who's doing laundry tomorrow? Whether the cabbage is ready to harvest. Did someone see a rat in the kitchen? That's it. You're not discussing ideas or sharing stories or making jokes. Jokes are frowned upon. Laughter is discouraged. Everything is serious and solemn. Your sense of humour shrivels up and dies. You forget what it's like to laugh until your sides hurt. You forget what it's like to have fun. The days are so repetitive that your brain stops forming distinct memories. Everything blurs together. You can't remember if you scrubbed the floor yesterday or last week. Did you have pottage for dinner yesterday? Probably. You have pottage every day. Did it rain this morning? Maybe. It often rains. Your memory becomes vague and fuzzy. You're living in a perpetual fog of sameness. You start to lose your sense of self. Who were you before you came here? You had interests, hobbies, opinions, preferences, but those things are stripped away. You're not allowed to have preferences. You eat what you're given. You do the work you're assigned. You pray when you're told. Your personality is being erased. You're becoming a cog in the convent machine. Just another silent figure in a wool robe, shuffling from chapel to refectory to workroom and back again. Let's talk about the weather, because it affects everything. The convent has no central heating, no air conditioning. You're completely at the mercy of the elements. In summer, the stone walls hold the heat. The air inside is stifling. You're sweating constantly. Your robe clings to your body. You're sticky and uncomfortable. The chapel is like an oven. During services, you're packed in with everyone else. The heat is unbearable. You can smell the collective sweat of 20 unwashed bodies. It's thick and nauseating. You're trying not to gag. Your head is swimming. You're on the verge of fainting, but you can't leave. You have to stay until the service ends. In winter, the cold is relentless. The wind howls through gaps in the shutters. Drafts swirl around your ankles. The stone walls radiate cold. It seeps into your bones. No matter how many layers you pile on, and you don't have many, you can't get warm. Your fingers are so cold they're clumsy. You drop things. You can't grip properly. Your toes are numb. You're stamping your feet to keep the circulation going. Your nose runs constantly. You're sniffing every few seconds. Your face is red and chapped from the wind. Your lips are cracked and bleeding. Rain makes everything worse. The roof leaks. Water drips through the ceiling in the dormitory. You're lying in bed, trying to sleep, and a cold drip lands on your face. You move, but then another drip finds you. The floor becomes slippery with puddles. You're sliding around, trying not to fall. Your shoes are soaked. Wet leather squelches with every step. Your feet are freezing and damp. The dampness spreads up your robe. You're cold and wet and miserable, and there's no drying off. There's no warm fire to stand next to. You just stay damp until eventually, maybe, you dry out a bit. Then it rains again. Snow is picturesque from a distance, but living in it is grim. The courtyard is covered in a thick layer of snow. You're trudging through it to get to the well. Your shoes are not waterproof. Snow gets inside. Your feet are soaking wet and freezing. Your toes feel like they're going to fall off. The wind whips snow into your face. You can't see. You're squinting, stumbling forward. Hauling water from the well in a snowstorm is torture. Your hands are so cold they're burning. The metal bucket handle feels like ice. You're carrying it back, sloshing freezing water on yourself. By the time you reach the kitchen, you're shaking uncontrollably. Let's discuss the absolute lack of comfort. Nothing is comfortable. Not the bed, not the chairs, not the benches. Everything is hard and unforgiving. You're sitting on a wooden bench with no cushion. After 10 minutes, your backside is numb. After an hour, you're in pain. You shift constantly, trying to find a position that doesn't hurt. There isn't one. The bench is just hard wood. That's it. You're sitting through a meal trying to eat, but mainly you're thinking about how much your rear end hurts. Let's move on to the social dynamics. You'd think everyone would be supportive and kind given the setting. You'd be wrong. Nuns are human. They have personalities. They have grudges. They gossip. Oh, they gossip. Even though talking is restricted, information still spreads. Whispered conversations in the corridor, meaningful glances during meals, sign language that conveys more than you'd think. Someone's always watching, someone's always judging. There are cliques. Certain nuns are close. They've been here together for years. They've formed bonds. You're the outsider. You're new. They don't trust you yet. They don't include you. You're sitting in the communal room, sewing, and two nuns across from you are communicating with their eyes. They glance at you, then at each other, then back at their work. You know they're talking about you. You can feel it. It's paranoia maybe, but it's also probably true. Some nuns are bitter. They've been here for decades. They've given up everything. They've endured hardship and discomfort, and they resent you. Why? Because you're younger, because you still have hope, because you haven't been completely broken yet. They make your life harder. They assign you the worst tasks. They criticize your work. They report your minor infractions to the prioress. They're not doing it out of malice exactly. They're doing it because misery loves company. If they've suffered, you should suffer too. There's jealousy. Maybe you're better at something. Maybe you can sing better. Maybe your stitching is neater. Maybe the prioress praised you once. That's enough to make someone resent you. They'll undermine you. They'll sabotage your work. You're copying a manuscript and someone bumps your table, causing you to smudge the ink. Was it an accident? Maybe. Or maybe it wasn't. You can't prove anything. You just have to redo the page and swallow your frustration. Then there are the suck-ups, the nuns who are constantly trying to impress the prioress. They're first to chapel. They're the loudest in their prayers. They volunteer for extra duties. They report everyone else's mistakes. They're insufferable, and they make you look bad by comparison. You're doing your best, but it's never enough because someone else is always doing more. It's exhausting trying to keep up. Friendships are complicated. You're not supposed to form close personal bonds. That's seen as exclusive and worldly. You're all supposed to be equal, all sisters in faith. But humans don't work that way. You naturally gravitate towards certain people. Maybe there's one nun who's kind to you, who smiles when no one's looking, who shares an extra piece of bread with you. You want to be her friend. But getting too close is dangerous. If the prioress notices, she'll separate you. She'll assign you to different tasks. She'll make sure you're never working together. Because personal attachments are a distraction from your devotion. You're desperately lonely. You're surrounded by people, but you're isolated. You can't talk freely. You can't express your feelings. You can't complain or vent or ask for help. You're expected to be serene and self-sufficient, but you're not. You're struggling. You're homesick. You miss your old life. You miss having friends you could laugh with. You miss having conversations that weren't about prayer or chores. You miss being yourself. But there's no one to tell, no one who'd understand. So you keep it all inside. You bottle it up, and it eats at you. Let's talk about the lack of medical care. You're living in close quarters with poor hygiene. Illness spreads fast. Someone comes down with a fever. Within days, half the convent is feverish. You're shivering under your thin blanket, drenched in perspiration despite the cold. Your head is pounding. Your throat is swollen. You ache all over. You're too weak to get out of bed. But unless you're actually unconscious, you're expected to attend at least some of the prayer services. You drag yourself to the chapel, stumble through the prayers, and collapse back into bed. The remedies are useless. Herbal teas that do nothing. Poultices that smell foul and make your skin itch. Bloodletting, which is the medieval answer to everything and only makes you weaker. You're already ill, and now you're having it drawn out of you into a bowl. The theory is that it balances your humours. The reality is that it makes you dizzy and nauseous. You're lying there watching your life drain away, wondering if this is really the best available treatment. It is. There's nothing else. Infections are common. You get a cut on your hand from kitchen work. It's small. You think nothing of it. But there's dirt everywhere. The wound gets infected. It swells up. It's red and hot to the touch. It throbs with pain. You can't use that hand. Someone makes a poultice of mashed herbs and slaps it on. It doesn't help. The infection spreads up your arm. You're feverish again. You're delirious. You're in serious trouble. Either your body fights off the infection on its own, or you're in real danger. There are no antibiotics. There's no surgery. It's just you versus the bacteria. And the bacteria have the home advantage. Stomach problems are routine. The food is bad. The water is questionable. You're constantly dealing with cramps, nausea, and digestive distress. You're running to the latrine multiple times a day. You're hunched over with stomach cramps. You can't eat because everything makes it worse. But you're supposed to eat because fasting without permission is a sin. So you force down the pottage, and half an hour later, you're regretting it. This cycle continues for days. You lose weight you can't afford to lose. You're weak and dehydrated. Eventually it passes. Your stomach settles. Then a few weeks later, it happens again. Skin conditions are everywhere. Rashes from the wool robe, fungal infections from damp conditions, sores that won't heal, boils that erupt on your skin, red and painful and full of nasty stuff. Someone lances the boil with a hot needle. It's agony. The relief when it drains is immediate, but the wound takes forever to heal. It's always at risk of getting infected. You're covering it with a cloth, but the cloth is dirty. Everything's dirty. You're fighting a losing battle. Joint pain is a constant companion. Your knees, your back, your hands. Everything aches. It's worse in cold, damp weather, which is most of the time. You're stiff when you wake up. It takes you a while to get moving. You hobble to the chapel like an elderly person. The pain eases a bit once you're up and moving, but it never goes away completely. By the end of the day, you're in agony again. You lie down on your uncomfortable bed, and your joints throb. You can't get comfortable. You can't sleep properly. You're exhausted, but in too much pain to rest. Let's discuss the diet in more detail, because it really is that bad. Pottage is the foundation of your diet. It's a thick stew made from whatever vegetables are available. In summer, it's slightly better because there are fresh vegetables. Peas, beans, onions, leeks, cabbage, carrots. They're all thrown into the pot and boiled into submission. The result is a greyish-green sludge. It's filling, but it's not tasty. There's no seasoning, no salt, or if there is, it's minimal. No pepper, no herbs, just vegetables and water. It sits in your stomach like a lump of clay. In winter, the pottage is worse. The vegetables are old. They've been stored in a cellar for months. They're wrinkled and soft. Some are starting to rot. You can taste the decay. There are bits in the pottage that are mushy and unpleasant. You're chewing something and it disintegrates into slime in your mouth. You swallow quickly, trying not to think about it. You're hungry, so you eat it anyway. But it's grim. Let's talk about your complete lack of freedom. You can't leave. The convent walls aren't just physical barriers, they're your entire world now. You can see the outside through the windows. You can hear sounds from beyond the walls. Carts passing on the road, people talking, animals, life continuing without you. But you're not part of it anymore. You're locked in here, literally, in some cases. The gates are kept locked. You're not allowed to wander off. You're not going into town. You're not visiting family. You're here until you die. The vow of enclosure means you're cut off from the world. News from outside filters in slowly and unreliably. Maybe a priest brings news when he visits. Maybe a delivery person mentions something. But mostly, you're in the dark. You don't know what's happening in the wider world. Political events, social changes, new inventions. None of it reaches you. You're frozen in time, living the same medieval routine, while the world outside moves on without you. You can't make choices. Every aspect of your life is controlled. When you wake up, what you eat, what you wear, what work you do, when you pray, when you sleep, none of it is your decision. The prioress decides. The rule decides. You're just following orders. You have no autonomy. You can't even choose to skip a meal because you're not hungry. You eat when everyone else eats. You can't choose to stay in bed because you're tired. You get up when the bell rings. You're a puppet and someone else is pulling the strings. You can't own anything. Personal possessions are forbidden. Everything belongs to the community. That robe you're wearing? Not yours. The bed you sleep in? Not yours. The spoon you eat with? Not yours. You have nothing. You are nothing. Your identity is stripped away. You're just another body in a wool robe, indistinguishable from the others. If you were to drop dead tomorrow, someone else would take your place. The routine would continue. You'd be forgotten within a week. You can't express yourself. No hobbies, no interests, no creativity. Everything is regimented and prescribed. You're copying a religious text. You copy it exactly as it's written. No illustrations unless instructed. No personal touches. You're making a candle. You make it the way you've been taught. No variations. You're singing a hymn. You sing it the way everyone else sings it. No personal interpretation. You're a cog in a machine, and cogs don't have personalities. You can't have opinions. Questioning is discouraged. Doubts are sinful. You're supposed to accept everything without question. The rules make sense because they're the rules. The routine is good because it's always been this way. If you start wondering why you're doing something, you're already in dangerous territory. Curiosity is pride. Pride is sin. Shut up and obey. That's the message. It's drilled into you over and over until you stop thinking altogether. The lack of privacy extends to your thoughts. You're supposed to confess your sins regularly. Not just actions, but thoughts. Impure thoughts, angry thoughts, selfish thoughts. You're expected to expose your inner life to scrutiny. You confess to the priest, and he assigns penance. But you're never quite sure what counts as a sin. Is it a sin to think about food during prayer? Probably. Is it a sin to resent the prioress? Definitely. Is it a sin to wish you were somewhere else? Absolutely. So you're constantly monitoring your own thoughts, trying to suppress anything that might be sinful. It's exhausting. Your brain is a minefield. Let's discuss the loneliness in more depth. You're surrounded by people, but you've never felt more alone. You can't connect with anyone. The rules forbid it. You can't have deep conversations. You can't share your feelings. You can't cry on someone's shoulder. You're supposed to be self-contained. But you're not. You're human. You need connection. You need empathy. You need someone to understand what you're going through. But there's no one. Everyone's too busy with their own survival. Everyone's too locked into the routine. You're all alone together. You miss your family. You think about them constantly. What are they doing right now? Are they thinking about you? Do they miss you? You'll probably never see them again. Visits are rare, and over time, they stop coming. They move on with their lives. You become a distant memory, someone they used to know. You're grieving the loss of relationships that aren't even dead, just inaccessible. It's a unique kind of pain. You miss simple pleasures, a comfortable chair, a hot bath, a good meal, a soft bed, a sunny day spent doing nothing, a conversation that makes you laugh, music that isn't a hymn, a book that's actually interesting. fresh clothes, a decent pair of shoes, freedom to go where you want, when you want. All of these things are gone. You didn't appreciate them when you had them. You took them for granted. Now they're gone, and you'd give anything to have them back, but you can't. This is your life now. Let's talk about the mental strain. You're constantly sleep-deprived, constantly hungry, constantly cold, constantly in pain. This wears you down mentally. You're not thinking clearly. You're irritable. You're depressed. You're anxious. You're on edge all the time. The smallest thing sets you off. Someone looks at you wrong, and you want to scream, but you can't. You have to maintain the serene facade. So you bottle it up. The pressure builds. You're a kettle about to boil over. Depression is rampant, though nobody calls it that. It's just the way things are. You're tired all the time, not just physically but emotionally. You've lost interest in everything. Not that there's much to be interested in. You're going through the motions. Wake up, pray, work, pray, eat, pray, work, pray, sleep, repeat. There's no joy, no purpose, just endless repetition. You're numb, you're empty, you're a shell going through a routine, waiting for it to be over. Anxiety is constant. You're always worried about messing up, about being punished, about not being good enough, about the prioress noticing your failings, about the other nuns judging you, about your growling stomach during silent prayer, about whether you'll be able to stay awake during matins, about whether the food will make you ill, about whether you'll survive another winter. Your mind races with worries, even though there's nothing you can do about any of them. You're powerless. Let's discuss the complete lack of stimulation. Your environment never changes. Same stone walls, same wooden benches, same drafty corridors, same view out the tiny window, same faces, same routine, day after day, month after month, year after year. Your brain is starving for novelty, for something, anything, new or different. But there's nothing. You're trapped in a loop. You start to hallucinate from boredom and exhaustion. You're staring at the wall during prayer, and you swear you see shapes moving in the shadows. You hear voices that aren't there, footsteps in the corridor when everyone's asleep. You're not going mad, probably. It's just your brain trying to create stimulation where there is none. But it's unsettling. You start to doubt your own perceptions. What's real? What's imagined? The line blurs. You talk to yourself, silently, inside your head. You have long conversations with yourself because there's no one else to talk to. You debate with yourself. You tell yourself stories. You relive memories. You imagine scenarios. Your internal world becomes richer and more detailed than the external one. You retreat into your own head because it's the only place where you have any freedom. But even that's risky. If your thoughts stray too far, they become sinful. You're not even safe inside your own mind. Let's circle back to the hygiene situation because it really deserves more attention. You're living in conditions that would make a modern person recoil in horror. Everything is filthy. The floors are dirty despite constant scrubbing. The walls are grimy. The air is stale. You're breathing in dust, smoke, and the collective stench of unwashed bodies. Your lungs are probably coated in grime. You cough constantly. Everyone does. It's a symphony of hacking and wheezing in the dormitory at night. Your personal hygiene is non-existent by modern standards. You wash your hands occasionally, usually before meals and after using the latrine, but the water's cold and the soap barely works. You're rinsing your hands in a communal bowl of water that's already grey with dirt from the previous person. Are you actually getting clean? Debatable. Your face rarely gets washed properly. You splash it with cold water in the morning if you remember. There's no cleanser, no towel. You just pat your face dry with the edge of your robe, which is already dirty. So you're basically just smearing the dirt around. Your body is covered in layers of grime. The rare baths don't really fix this. You're washing in murky water with ineffective soap. You can scrub all you want, but you're never truly clean. There's always a residue, a film of dirt on your skin. It builds up over time. Your skin feels grimy to the touch. You can feel it, but you can't see it because there are no mirrors. You just know you're dirty. You can smell it on yourself. Your clothes are disgusting. The wool robe absorbs sweat, dirt, and every smell it comes into contact with. Kitchen smoke, latrine stench, garden mud, candle grease. It all soaks into the fibres. The robe gets washed occasionally, maybe once every few months. But medieval laundry methods aren't thorough. The robe comes back still smelling faintly of everything. After a few years, the smell is permanent. It's woven into the fabric. You're walking around in a wearable history of every unpleasant smell the convent has to offer. The undergarment is worse because it's in direct contact with your skin. It absorbs sweat and oils. It rubs against your body all day. It gets damp with perspiration. It never fully dries. You're wearing a clammy, smelly piece of linen next to your skin. It chafes. It itches. It's revolting. But you can't change it because you only have one. When it gets washed, you have to go without until it dries. So you're either wearing a dirty undergarment or going commando under your scratchy wool robe. Both options are terrible. Your hair is a breeding ground for parasites. Lice, definitely. They're everywhere. You can feel them moving on your scalp. It's maddening. You scratch until your scalp is raw. But you can't get rid of them. They lay eggs in your hair. The eggs hatch. More lice. It's a never-ending cycle. The only way to truly get rid of them would be to shave your head, but that's not allowed. So you're stuck with a head full of lice. Everyone has them. It's normal. Disgusting, but normal. Fleas are another problem. They live in the straw mattresses, in the wool robes, in the cracks in the floorboards. They bite you constantly. You're covered in small red bites. They itch like crazy. You scratch in your sleep. You wake up with scratches and bite marks all over your body. You can catch fleas jumping from person to person. You're sitting next to someone and you feel a sharp bite on your ankle. A flea just transferred from them to you. Congratulations. Now you have more fleas. Bed bugs are in the wooden bed frames and the straw mattresses. They come out at night and feast on you while you sleep. You wake up with lines of bites across your skin. They're itchy and inflamed. You can see the bed bugs if you look closely. Little brown insects hiding in the cracks of the wood. You try to squash them, but there are too many. They breed faster than you can kill them, so you just accept that you're going to be bitten every night. It becomes part of the routine. Go to bed, get bitten, wake up itching, repeat. Rats are everywhere. Big, bold rats that aren't afraid of people. You see them in the corridors. They scurry across the floor during meals. They're in the kitchen, in the food stores, in the dormitory. They chew through sacks of grain. They leave droppings everywhere. You're constantly sweeping up rat droppings. They're disgusting, and they carry disease, but there's no way to get rid of them. You set traps. You catch a few, but more rats appear. It's a losing battle. Mice are even more numerous. They're in the walls. You can hear them scratching and squeaking at night. They get into everything. They chew holes in fabric. They nest in your straw mattress. You shake out your blanket and a family of mice scatter. They're less threatening than rats, but they're still pests. They're eating your already meager food supply. They're spreading filth. They're just another layer of misery. The smell of the convent is overwhelming once you really notice it. It's a mix of unwashed bodies, stale wool, wood smoke, old food, latrine stench, and damp stone. It all blends together into a thick, oppressive miasma. When you first arrived, it probably made you gag. Now you're used to it. You don't notice it anymore. But if you were transported back to the modern world, you'd be horrified by how you smell. You'd strip off your clothes and burn them. You'd scrub yourself raw in the shower. You'd never want to smell like that again. Let's discuss the actual quality of the drinking water in more detail. It comes from a well in the courtyard. The well is old. The water table might be contaminated. There's a graveyard not far from the convent. Think about that. You're drawing water from a well that might be downstream from decomposing bodies. The water tastes metallic and slightly off. Sometimes it has a brownish tinge. Sometimes there are tiny particles floating in it. You try not to look too closely. You just drink it because you're thirsty. And then you spend the next few hours hoping your stomach doesn't rebel. Ale or weak beer would be safer, but those are reserved for special occasions or for the senior nuns. You're at the bottom of the hierarchy. You get water. Dodgy, questionable water. You're basically playing a game of chance every time you drink. Will this jug of water be fine? Or will it give you cramps and send you running to the latrine? You never know until it's too late. Food storage is primitive. There's no refrigeration. Food is kept in a cool cellar, but cool doesn't mean cold. In summer, things spoil quickly. The cheese gets moldy. The bread gets stale and attracts weevils. You're picking weevils out of your bread before you eat it. Little white grubs. They're protein, technically, but they're still grubs. You're eating bug-infested bread because it's that or go hungry. The kitchen is a source of cross-contamination. Raw and cooked foods are prepared on the same surfaces. Knives are wiped on a cloth and reused. The cloth is filthy. Nobody's washing their hands properly. You're stirring the pottage with the same paddle that was used to stir yesterday's pottage. Was it washed in between? Maybe. Maybe not. The cauldron itself is black with soot and old food residue. It gets scraped out occasionally, but it's never truly clean. Meat, on the rare occasions it's available, is handled without any concern for safety. It's butchered on a wooden table that's stained with old meat juices. The knife's been used for everything. The meat sits out at room temperature until it's cooked. In summer, flies land on it. You're eating fly-contaminated meat. Or rather, you're not, because nuns rarely eat meat. But the principle stands. If you did eat meat, it would be risky. Let's talk about the communal sleeping arrangements in excruciating detail. The dormitory is one long room packed with narrow beds. There's barely enough space to walk between them. You're sleeping within arm's reach of other people. You can hear everything, every breath, every movement, every bodily function. Someone 3 beds down has indigestion. You're listening to her stomach gurgle and groan for hours. Someone else is having a vivid dream. She's muttering and thrashing around. Her bed frame creaks with every movement. The sound echoes through the room. Snoring is constant and varied. One nun sounds like she's sawing logs. Another makes a high-pitched whistling noise. Another snorts and gasps like she's drowning. The combination is maddening. You're lying there, exhausted, desperate to sleep, and it sounds like you're in a farmyard. You put your thin blanket over your head to muffle the noise. It doesn't help much. The snoring penetrates everything. You're awake for hours listening to the chorus of snorers, wondering if you'll ever sleep again. Then there are the nighttime trips to the latrine. Someone gets up. Her bed creaks. Her footsteps shuffle across the stone floor. The dormitory door opens with a long creak. Cold air rushes in. Everyone shifts and mutters. The door closes. 5 minutes later, it opens again. More cold air. More shuffling. This happens multiple times a night. Your sleep is constantly interrupted. Just as you're drifting off, someone else is getting up. The cycle never ends. Some nuns talk in their sleep. You're hearing fragments of conversations that make no sense. Someone's arguing with an invisible person. Someone's reciting prayers. Someone's laughing. It's eerie in the darkness. You're staring at the ceiling, listening to disembodied voices, feeling like you're losing your mind. Is this normal? Is this what your life has become? Apparently, yes. The temperature in the dormitory fluctuates wildly. In winter, it's freezing. Everyone's huddled under their inadequate blankets, shivering. You can see your breath in the air. The stone walls radiate cold. In summer, it's stifling. The air is hot and stuffy. There's no ventilation. The small windows don't provide enough airflow. Everyone's sweating. The smell of 20 sweaty bodies in a closed room is overpowering. You're lying on top of your blanket trying to cool down, but there's no relief. The heat is suffocating. Morning comes brutally early. The bell for matins rings at 2. Someone lights a candle. The flickering light is harsh after hours of darkness. Everyone groans and stirs. You're dragging yourself out of bed, still half asleep. Your body feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Your eyes are gritty. Your mouth tastes foul. You fumble for your robe in the darkness. Someone bumps into you. Someone else steps on your foot. It's chaos in the dark. Everyone's trying to get dressed and get to chapel. You're shuffling along in a line of zombies, all equally miserable. Let's discuss the chapel in winter specifically. It's the coldest place in the entire convent. It's a huge space with a high vaulted ceiling. Heat rises, so even if there were heat, which there isn't, it would all be up near the ceiling where it's useless. The floor is stone. Kneeling on it in winter is like kneeling on a frozen lake. The cold seeps through your robe instantly. Your kneecaps feel like they're turning to ice. Within minutes, you've lost all feeling in your lower legs. Your hands are folded in prayer, but they're shaking from the cold. Your fingers are white. You can barely move them. Your nose is running. You're sniffing constantly, trying to be quiet about it, but everyone's sniffing. It's a chorus of sniffs and shivers. The priest at the front is droning on in Latin. His breath forms clouds in the air. He's probably as cold as you are, but he doesn't show it. He's been doing this for years. He's numb to it, literally and figuratively. The hymns in winter are painful to sing. Your throat is dry from breathing cold air. Your lungs hurt. You're coughing between verses. Everyone's coughing. It's less like singing and more like a collective hacking session set to music. The sound echoes off the stone walls. It's not beautiful. It's not uplifting. It's just sad and uncomfortable. When the service finally ends, standing up is agony. Your knees don't want to bend. Your legs are stiff. You're hobbling out of the chapel like you've aged 50 years. The walk back to the dormitory is torture. Your feet are numb blocks of ice. You can't feel your toes. You're worried about frostbite, though you don't know what frostbite is. You just know your feet don't feel right. You climb back into bed, but you can't get warm. You're shivering under your blanket, teeth chattering, waiting for the next bell. Let's talk about the garden work in summer heat. You'd think summer would be better than winter. In some ways it is. In other ways it's worse. The garden is where you spend hours in the blazing sun. You're wearing a heavy wool robe and a veil. Wool doesn't breathe. You're basically wrapped in a blanket while working in the heat. Within minutes, you're drenched in perspiration. It's running down your face, stinging your eyes. It's soaking your undergarment. It's pooling in uncomfortable places. The sun beats down on your head. The veil offers some protection, but not much. Your scalp is hot. Your face is bright red. You're dizzy from the heat. You're weeding the vegetable patch, bent over, pulling up weeds by hand. Your back is screaming. Sweat is dripping off your nose onto the dirt. You're breathing hard. The air is thick and humid. It feels like you're trying to breathe soup. Insects are everywhere. Flies buzz around your head. They land on your face. You swat them away, but they come right back. Gnats fly into your eyes and mouth. You're spitting them out. Mosquitoes bite any exposed skin. Your hands and face are covered in itchy welts. You scratch them, which makes them worse. Bees and wasps are attracted to the flowers in the herb garden. You're working near them, trying not to disturb them. One stings you on the hand. The pain is sharp and immediate. Your hand swells up. It throbs for hours. The soil is hard and dry. You're trying to dig with a wooden spade. It barely makes a dent. You're putting all your weight on the spade, trying to break through the crust. Your shoulders and arms are burning. You're making slow progress. Each hole for a new plant takes forever. By the time you're done, you're exhausted. You're covered in dirt. It's stuck to your sweaty skin. You look like you've been rolling in mud. Water is scarce in summer. The well level drops. The water you draw is even more questionable than usual. It's got a greenish tint. It tastes swampy. But you're so thirsty you drink it anyway. You're supposed to water the garden, but there's barely enough water for drinking. The vegetables are wilting. The herbs are dying. You're hauling bucket after bucket from the well, trying to save the plants. It's back-breaking work. The buckets are heavy. Your arms are trembling. You slosh water all over yourself. It provides a brief moment of cool relief before you're hot and sweaty again. Let's discuss the absolutely mind-numbing tedium of certain tasks. Take spinning, for example. Some convents produce thread and cloth. You're given a distaff and spindle. You're twisting fibres into thread. It's a repetitive motion. Twist, pull, wind. Twist, pull, wind. Over and over and over. For hours. Your fingers move automatically. Your mind goes blank. You're staring into space, hands working on autopilot. One day, you produce maybe enough thread to fill a small spool. To make enough thread for a single garment takes weeks of this mind-numbing work. Let's examine the reality of the so-called spiritual life. You came here, or were sent here, with the expectation that this would be a meaningful spiritual journey, that you'd find peace and purpose, that you'd feel closer to something greater. The reality is nothing like that. You're too tired, too hungry, too cold, and too uncomfortable to have profound spiritual experiences. Your prayers are mechanical. You're reciting words without feeling them. Your mind wanders constantly. During services, you're thinking about food. You're fantasizing about a thick slice of warm bread with butter, or a bowl of hot stew with actual meat in it, or anything that tastes like something. Your stomach growls during the quiet moments. The nun next to you definitely heard it. You're mortified, but you're also so hungry you don't really care. You keep praying or pretending to pray while your brain fixates on imaginary meals. Or you're thinking about sleep. How nice it would be to sleep for a whole night without interruption. To wake up naturally when your body is ready, not when a bell is ringing. To sleep in a comfortable bed with a soft pillow and a warm blanket. You're standing in the chapel, eyes closed, swaying slightly, and you're not praying. You're fantasizing about sleep. When someone starts the next hymn, you jerk awake and scramble to join in. Or you're thinking about the pain. Your knees hurt so much. How much longer is this service? You try to shift your weight subtly, but kneeling on stone offers no comfortable position. You endure. You count the stones in the wall to distract yourself. Anything to take your mind off the pain. This isn't spiritual transcendence, this is just survival. The repetition kills any sense of meaning. When you hear the same prayers 8 times a day, every single day, they stop being prayers. They become sounds, meaningless syllables you're making with your mouth. The words have been drained of significance through sheer overuse. It's like saying any word over and over until it becomes nonsense. Your entire spiritual practice has become nonsense. You're going through the motions with no connection to what you're doing or why. Some nuns seem genuinely devout. They've been here so long they've Stockholm syndromed themselves into believing this is good. They've convinced themselves that suffering is holy, that discomfort brings them closer to the divine. They're serene and peaceful, or at least they appear to be. You watch them with a mixture of envy and suspicion. Have they really found peace? Or have they just broken under the pressure and this is what it looks like? You're expected to find joy in service. Scrubbing floors should be an act of devotion. Hauling water should be an offering. Every menial task is supposed to have spiritual significance, but it doesn't. Scrubbing floors is just scrubbing floors. Your back hurts, your hands are raw, you're resentful and exhausted. There's no joy, no devotion, just grim determination to get through the task so you can move on to the next equally unpleasant task. Fasting is supposed to be spiritually purifying. It's supposed to clear your mind and focus your thoughts on higher things. In reality, fasting just makes you lightheaded and irritable. You can't focus on anything except how hungry you are. Your stomach is cramping, your head is pounding, you're weak and shaky. This isn't spiritual enlightenment. This is just starvation dressed up in religious language. The vow of silence is supposed to promote inner reflection and contemplation. It's supposed to help you hear the divine voice within. Instead, it just makes you lonely and frustrated. You're desperate to talk to someone, to have a real conversation, to connect with another human being. The silence doesn't bring you closer to anything. It just isolates you further. Let's talk about the special religious festivals that are supposed to break up the monotony. Christmas is supposed to be joyful. There are longer services, special prayers, maybe slightly better food, a piece of spiced cake if you're lucky. The convent is decorated with holly and ivy. It's supposed to feel festive, but it doesn't. It's just colder than usual because it's the middle of winter. The special services are even longer than the regular ones. You're in the chapel for hours, knees turning to ice. The cake is a tiny piece that's gone in 2 bites. Then it's back to the usual routine. If anything, the brief glimpse of something different makes the regular routine feel even worse by comparison. Easter involves fasting, serious fasting. You're eating even less than usual, which seems impossible, but they manage it. You're weak and dizzy for weeks. There are elaborate services with lots of standing and kneeling. Your body can barely handle it on a normal day. On reduced rations, it's torture. You're swaying on your feet, vision going dark around the edges. Someone catches you before you fall. You're helped out of the chapel, humiliated. You're given a sip of water and told to sit quietly. You've failed at fasting. You've failed at Easter. You're a disappointment. Saints' days come and go. Each one means a special service. More prayers, more kneeling. Sometimes a reading about the saint's life, which usually involves them suffering horribly for their faith. You're supposed to find this inspiring. Instead, you find it depressing. All these people suffered and died. And for what? So you could kneel on a cold floor centuries later and hear about it. It doesn't make sense, but you don't say that out loud. You just endure the service and shuffle back to your routine. Harvest time should be a relief. The gardeners produce vegetables, there's fresh food. For a few weeks the pottage is slightly more varied. Fresh peas, fresh beans, fresh cabbage. It's still pottage, but at least it doesn't taste quite as much like despair. But harvest also means extra work. The vegetables need to be picked, cleaned and stored. You're working even longer hours. Your brief period of slightly better food is offset by increased exhaustion. Winter is a slow, grinding horror. The days are short. It's dark most of the time. The cold is relentless. Food stores are running low. The pottage gets thinner. You're eating more bread and less of everything else. The bread is harder and stalker because they're stretching the supply. You're hungrier than usual, which seems impossible. You're colder than usual. You're more miserable than usual. Winter lasts forever. You start to wonder if spring will ever come. When spring finally arrives, it's not the joyous relief you hoped for. Yes, it's warmer. The garden comes back to life. But spring also means mud. Endless, thick, sticky mud. The courtyard is a mud pit. The garden is mud. You're tracking mud everywhere. Your shoes are caked in it. The hem of your robe is brown with mud. You're slipping and sliding. You fall face first into the mud while carrying a bucket of water. You're soaked, filthy, and the bucket is empty. You have to go back to the well and start again. Spring also means increased insect activity. Flies are hatching. Mosquitoes are everywhere. The herb garden needs weeding, and you're being bitten constantly while you work. You're scratching mosquito bites on top of flea bites. Your skin is a landscape of inflamed welts. You're miserable in a whole new way. Let's discuss the economic reality of the convent. The place has to support itself. That means producing something of value. Maybe the convent makes candles to sell. Maybe it grows extra vegetables to trade. Maybe it produces cloth or thread. Whatever it is, you're part of the labour force. You're working not just to maintain the convent, but to generate income. You're essentially unpaid labour. Let's talk about the absolutely soul-crushing nature of having no future to look forward to. In normal life, even when things are hard, you can tell yourself it's temporary. You're working towards something, a goal, a change, a reward. Here, there's nothing. This is your life now. This is your life next year. This is your life in 10 years. Nothing changes. Nothing improves. There's no promotion, no raise, no retirement. You're doing this until you die. You watch the older nuns and see your future. They're bent and broken. Their hands are gnarled with arthritis. They move slowly, painfully. They've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and they're still doing it. Still attending services, still doing chores, though lighter ones, still living in the same cold cells, eating the same terrible food. That's going to be you. There's no escape, no happy ending, just decades of the same grinding routine until your body gives out. The realization hits you at strange moments. You're scrubbing a floor and suddenly you think, I'm going to be scrubbing this same floor when I'm 60. The thought is crushing. You stop mid-scrub, frozen by the horror of it. Then someone walks past, and you snap back to it. You keep scrubbing. What else can you do? There's no alternative. This is your life. You start to understand why some of the older nuns are so bitter. They've lived this life long enough to know exactly how pointless it is. All the suffering, all the sacrifice, and for what? They're old, broken, and they'll die in the same cold cell where they've spent decades. No comfort, no peace, just the same routine until the end. And you're following right behind them down the same path. Some nuns die relatively young. Illness, infection, accidents. In some ways, that seems like mercy. At least their suffering ended. The ones who live into old age just seem to suffer longer. They're in constant pain from worn-out joints. They can barely walk. They're hunched over from decades of bending and kneeling. Their teeth are gone. Their hearing is going, their eyesight is failing, but they still have to attend services, still have to pray 8 times a day, still have to follow the routine. There's no retirement, no rest, just continuing until you physically can't anymore. When someone does die, the response is muted. There's a funeral service. The body is buried in the convent cemetery. Everyone attends. Prayers are said. Then it's back to the routine. The dead nun is replaced if possible. Her cell is cleaned out. Her few possessions are redistributed. Within a week, it's like she never existed. Life goes on. The routine continues. You'll be forgotten just as quickly when your time comes. Let's discuss the lack of medical knowledge in more depth. The herb remedies are based on tradition and guesswork, not science. Nobody really knows why certain herbs are supposed to help certain conditions. They just follow what's been written in old manuscripts. Chamomile for sleep, mint for stomach problems, sage for something. Nobody's quite sure. You use the remedies because there's nothing else, but they rarely work. When someone has a fever, the treatment is to make them sweat it out. They're bundled in blankets in a hot room. They're given hot drinks. The theory is that sweating purges the illness. The reality is that the person gets dangerously dehydrated. Their fever spikes higher. They become delirious. Sometimes they recover despite the treatment. Sometimes they don't. It's basically random chance. Humoral theory dominates medical thinking. The idea is that the body contains 4 humors that need to be balanced. If you're ill, your humors are out of balance. The solution is to restore balance through various means. Bloodletting to reduce excess. Certain foods to increase deficiency. It's all nonsense, but it's the best theory available. So people are treated according to these principles, and mostly they either get better on their own or they die. For respiratory illnesses, you're given steam treatments. You lean over a bowl of hot water with herbs in it, a cloth over your head, breathing in the steam. It's supposed to clear your lungs. Mostly it just makes you sweaty and uncomfortable. Your cough doesn't improve, your congestion doesn't clear. But you do the treatment anyway, because what else is there? Wounds are treated by packing them with cloth soaked in wine or vinegar if available. The alcohol does have some antiseptic properties, though nobody knows that. It's just tradition. The wound is wrapped and you hope for the best. If the wound is deep or dirty, infection is almost guaranteed. The area swells and becomes hot. You develop a fever. If you're lucky, the infection stays localized and eventually resolves. If you're unlucky, it spreads. And then you're in serious trouble with no real help available. Broken bones are set by whoever has the most experience, which isn't saying much. They feel the break, pull the bone into what they think is the right position and splint it. There's no way to know if they got it right until it heals. Often, they don't get it right. The bone heals crooked. You're left with a deformity and limited function, but at least you survived. For stomach ailments, fasting is prescribed. Your stomach is upset, so the solution is to stop eating. This makes sense on the surface, but when you're already malnourished, fasting makes things worse. You're weak and dizzy. Your body has no resources to fight whatever's making you ill. But fasting is the treatment, so that's what happens. Skin conditions are treated with ointments made from animal fat and herbs. The ointment is greasy and smells bad. It doesn't really help. Your rash or sore continues. You keep applying the ointment because it's all there is. Eventually your body heals itself, or it doesn't. The ointment had nothing to do with the outcome. Let's talk about what happens when you're genuinely seriously ill. You're moved to a small room that serves as an infirmary. It's cold and bare. There's a bed. Slightly better than your usual one, but not by much. You're lying there, too weak to move. Someone brings you water and thin broth. You're supposed to rest and recover, but the room is cold. You're shivering under a blanket. The broth has no nutritional value. It's just hot water with maybe a vegetable floating in it. The other nuns pray for your recovery. They pray a lot. But prayer doesn't lower your fever or fight your infection. You're getting worse. Your fever spikes. You're delirious, muttering nonsense. Someone sits with you, wiping your forehead with a damp cloth. It's the most care and attention you've received since you arrived. It's only happening because you're dying. If you recover, it's because your body managed to fight off whatever was killing you. You're weak for weeks afterwards. You've lost weight you couldn't afford to lose, but you're expected to return to the routine as soon as you can stand. No extended convalescence, no special treatment. Back to the chapel, back to the chores. Your body hasn't fully recovered, but that doesn't matter. The routine must continue. If you don't recover, you die in that cold little room. Someone holds your hand at the end. Prayers are said over your body. You're wrapped in a shroud and buried in the cemetery. A wooden cross marks your grave. Your name is carved on it, but the wood will rot in a few years. Eventually, even that will be gone. You'll be completely forgotten. Just another nun who lived and died in obscurity. Let's discuss the cumulative psychological damage this life inflicts. The isolation, the hardship, the monotony, the lack of hope. It all adds up. Your personality changes. You become withdrawn and quiet, even during the times when talking is allowed. You've got nothing to say. Your life is so empty, there's no news to share, no stories to tell. You just exist. Let's examine the absolute absurdity of the dress code in more detail. The wool robe is impractical for every single task you're required to do. Gardening in a long robe means the hem drags through mud and dirt. It gets soaked and heavy. The wet fabric slaps against your legs as you walk. You're constantly lifting the hem to keep it out of puddles, which means you can't use both hands for work. You need both hands, so you let the hem drag and accept that you'll be walking around in a filthy, sodden robe for the rest of the day. Kitchen work in flowing robes is dangerous. The fabric can catch fire if you get too close to the hearth. You're constantly aware of the flames, constantly checking that your sleeves aren't near the fire. The robe is bulky and gets in the way when you're trying to work. You're stirring the cauldron and your sleeve dips into the pot. Now you've got scalding pottage soaking through the wool onto your arm. It burns. You're gritting your teeth, trying not to cry out. You rinse the sleeve with cold water, but the damage is done. You've got a burn that'll blister and hurt for days. The sleeves are long and loose. They hang down over your hands. When you're trying to do detailed work like sewing or copying manuscripts, the sleeves are constantly in the way. You have to push them up, but they slide back down. You're pushing them up every few minutes. It's infuriating. Some nuns tie their sleeves back with string, but that's seen as vain. You're supposed to just deal with the inconvenience. So you do, because what choice do you have? The rope belt sits at your natural waist. It's tied in a simple knot. The rope is thick and scratchy. It rubs against your skin through the linen undergarment. Over time, you develop a permanent red mark around your waist, where the rope sits. The skin is irritated and sore. In summer, when you're sweating, the rope chafes even worse, but you can't not wear it. The belt is part of the uniform. It's symbolic. It's required. So you suffer the constant irritation and try not to think about it. The veil is its own special torture. It's a large piece of cloth that covers your hair completely and drapes down over your shoulders. It's held in place with pins. The pins are sharp and they dig into your scalp, Get the angle wrong, and you're stabbing yourself every time you move your head. The veil is hot. In summer, it's like wearing a thick towel wrapped around your head. Your scalp sweats. Your hair gets damp and greasy. The veil absorbs the sweat and starts to smell. The veil restricts your vision. You can't see peripherally. You have to turn your whole head to look to the side. This is dangerous when you're carrying heavy things or working near fire. You've almost walked into walls because you didn't see them in your peripheral vision. You've bumped into other nuns. You've knocked things over. The lack of peripheral vision is a constant hazard, but you're stuck with it. The veil also muffles sound. It covers your ears. Everything sounds distant and muted. People have to speak up for you to hear them clearly. During services, you're straining to hear the responses so you know when to join in. You're always slightly behind everyone else because you heard the cue a second late. It's embarrassing. But removing or adjusting the veil isn't allowed. You're supposed to wear it exactly as prescribed. In windy weather, the veil is a nightmare. The wind catches it and whips it around. It flaps in your face. You're constantly grabbing at it, trying to keep it in place. The pins work loose. The veil starts to slide off. You're walking across the courtyard, one hand holding buckets, the other hand desperately trying to keep your veil on your head. It's ridiculous. You look ridiculous. But this is your life now. Let's talk about the footwear situation in more detail. The leather shoes you're wearing are handmade, not well made, roughly made by whoever in the convent has cobbling skills. The leather is stiff and unforgiving. New shoes have to be broken in, and breaking them in means blisters. Painful blisters on your heels and toes. The blisters burst. You're walking on raw skin. Every step is agony. You're limping around, trying to minimize the pain. It takes weeks for your feet to toughen up enough that the shoes are bearable. The shoes have no left or right. They're symmetrical. This means they don't conform to the shape of your feet. They're just generic foot coverings. Your feet cramp from being forced into an unnatural position. Your toes are squished together. You're developing bunions from the constant pressure. Your feet are changing shape to accommodate the terrible shoes. The soles are thin leather. You can feel every pebble and crack in the floor through them. Walking on rough ground is painful. Stepping on a sharp stone sends a jolt of pain up your leg. The soles wear out quickly. They develop holes. You're walking around with holes in your shoes. You can feel the cold stone floor directly on your foot. Water seeps in when it rains. Your feet are wet and cold all the time. Getting new shoes isn't simple. Resources are limited. You're expected to make your shoes last as long as possible. You're walking around with shoes that are falling apart because there's no money or materials for new ones. Your feet are suffering. But that's just another discomfort to add to the pile. In winter, the inadequate shoes mean your feet are chronically cold. Your toes are numb. You're worried about losing toes to frostbite. You try wrapping your feet in rags for extra insulation, but there aren't enough rags to go around. You're competing with other nuns for scraps of cloth. Maybe you get enough for one foot. You're walking around with one foot slightly less frozen than the other. In summer, the shoes are hot and your feet sweat. The leather doesn't breathe. Your feet are cooking inside the shoes. They're damp with perspiration. The dampness causes the leather to soften and stretch. Your shoes become loose and floppy. They don't support your feet properly. You're shuffling along because the shoes are practically falling off. But you can't get them adjusted. You just deal with it. Let's discuss the hair situation under the veil. You can't see it, but you can feel it. It's long because cutting hair short is seen as unfeminine and improper. But you also can't care for it properly. You can't wash it regularly. You can't brush it thoroughly. It becomes a matted, tangled mess under the veil. You try to comb it with a basic wooden comb, but the teeth are wide and it doesn't really detangle. You're pulling at the knots, wincing as hair tears out. You give up. The tangles become permanent. The lice love your hair. It's perfect habitat for them. Long, warm, covered by a veil. They're breeding in there. You can feel them. At night, when you remove your veil, you can feel them moving on your scalp. It's revolting. You scratch and scratch. Your scalp is raw and inflamed from constant scratching. But the lice don't go away. They're a permanent part of your life now. Your hair is greasy from not being washed. It's got a thick coating of scalp oil. You can feel it when you touch your hair. It's slick and disgusting. The smell is bad. It's a musty, stale smell. Combined with the lice and the sweat and the fact that it's always covered by the veil, your hair is in terrible condition. If you ever saw it, you'd be horrified. But you can't see it, which is maybe a mercy. Some nuns develop bald patches from the constant tension of the veil pins and the scratching from lice. You can feel thin spots on your scalp where there's less hair. The hair is breaking off from being tangled and pulled. You're slowly losing your hair from neglect and poor conditions. By the time you're older, you'll have significantly less hair than you started with. But again, you can't see it. You just feel your scalp getting more exposed to the cold. Let's talk about the social hierarchy in brutal detail. The prioress is untouchable. She has authority over every aspect of convent life. She can reassign your work, she can increase your duties, she can put you on reduced rations as punishment. She can make your life significantly worse on a whim. So you're terrified of her. You avoid eye contact. You speak to her as little as possible. When she addresses you, you're stammering and nervous, terrified of saying something wrong. The senior nuns just below the prioress have their own little fiefdoms. The nun in charge of the kitchen rules that space absolutely. She decides who does what tasks. She controls the food distribution. If she doesn't like you, you're getting the worst jobs and the smallest portions. You need to stay on her good side, but you're not sure how. You're walking on eggshells, trying not to offend her. There's a social order among the regular nuns too. The ones who've been there longest have seniority. They get slightly better treatment. They're not assigned the absolute worst tasks. They have a bit more social standing. They can get away with small infractions that you'd be punished for. They're the established residents, and you're the newcomer. They make sure you know it. Cliques form, despite the rules, against personal attachments. 2 or 3 nuns who came from the same region stick together. They communicate with looks and gestures. They watch out for each other. If you're not in a clique, you're vulnerable. Nobody's looking out for you. You're on your own. You try to align yourself with a group, but they're not interested. You're the outsider. There's competition for the easier jobs. Everyone wants to work in the scriptorium instead of the garden. Everyone wants to sew instead of scrub floors. The prioress assigns work, but the senior nuns influence her decisions. If a senior nun speaks well of you, you might get a better assignment. If she speaks poorly of you, you're stuck with the worst tasks indefinitely. So you're trying to impress the senior nuns, but it's hard to know how. They're inscrutable. Favoritism exists. The prioress has her favorites. Maybe they're more pious. Maybe they're more skilled at something useful. Maybe they've just been there longer. Whatever the reason, the favorites get small perks. Better food portions. Less demanding work. More lenient treatment. You're not a favorite. You're just another worker. You watch the favorites get treated better, and you're resentful. But you can't show it. Resentment is a sin. There's gossip despite the silence rules. Information spreads through whispers and gestures. Someone made a mistake during a service. Someone complained about the food. Someone was seen crying. The gossip travels through the convent like wildfire. Soon everyone knows. You're terrified of becoming the subject of gossip. You're careful to never show weakness, never make mistakes, never give anyone anything to talk about. But it's impossible. Everyone makes mistakes. You're going to be gossiped about eventually. When you become the subject of gossip, it's awful. You can feel the other nuns looking at you. You can see them whispering. You're not sure what they're saying, but you know it's about you. You're paranoid. Every glance feels like judgment. Every whispered conversation feels like it's about your failings. You're isolated even further, because now you're marked as someone who messed up. Let's discuss the complete lack of entertainment or leisure. There are no books except religious texts, no music except hymns, no games, no crafts for pleasure. Every moment is structured and purposeful, work or prayer. That's it. There's no time for anything else. Even if there were time, recreational activities are seen as frivolous. Your life is supposed to be serious and devoted. Fun is worldly. Pleasure is suspect. You're starving for mental stimulation. Your brain is rotting from lack of use. You're doing repetitive tasks that require no thought. You're reciting prayers you've memorized. There's no challenge, no learning, no growth. You're intellectually stagnant. You can feel your mind getting duller. You used to be sharper. You used to think about complex things. Now your thoughts are simple and repetitive. Food, cold, pain, sleep. That's the extent of your mental life. You try to entertain yourself inside your own head. You replay memories from before. You imagine elaborate scenarios. You make up stories. But even your imagination is getting tired. You've replayed the same memories so many times they're worn out. You've imagined the same scenarios over and over. There's nothing new. Your inner life is as monotonous as your outer life. You start to fixate on tiny things for entertainment. There's a spider in the corner of your cell. You watch it build a web. You watch it catch flies. You're genuinely interested in this spider's activities because it's the only thing happening that's not part of the routine. The spider is living its life, and you're living vicariously through a spider. That's how desperate you are for something, anything interesting. You memorize the cracks in the walls. You know every stone in your cell. You've counted them 100 times. You know which floorboard creaks when you step on it. You know the pattern of water stains on the ceiling. You've studied your environment in excruciating detail because there's nothing else to study. You're an expert on a small, cold, bare room. Congratulations. Let's talk about the weather's impact on work. Rain makes outdoor work impossible, but it still has to be done. You're in the garden in the rain, harvesting vegetables that need to be brought in. You're soaked within minutes. The rain is cold. It's running down your face, dripping off your nose. Your robe is heavy with water. It's clinging to your body. Your shoes are full of water. Your feet are squelching with every step. You're shivering. Your hands are so cold you can barely grip the vegetables. But you keep working because the work has to be done. Wind makes everything harder. You're trying to haul water from the well and the wind is pushing against you. You're leaning into it, struggling forward. The wind is so strong it nearly knocks you over. Your veil is whipping around. You can't see properly. You're stumbling, trying to keep your balance and not spill the water. Everything takes twice as long in high wind. Extreme heat makes work dangerous. You're in the kitchen in the middle of summer. The fire is blazing because bread needs to be baked. The room is an oven. You're sweating so much you're dizzy. Your vision is blurring. You're feeling nauseous. You need to sit down, but you can't. The work isn't done. You push through hoping you don't collapse. Someone did collapse last summer. She had to be carried out. She was ill for days. You don't want that to be you, but you're heading in that direction. Frost makes morning work brutal. You're going to the well before dawn. The courtyard is covered in frost. The ground is slippery. You're walking carefully, trying not to fall. The bucket handle is frozen metal. Touching it burns your hands with cold. You're trying to haul water and your hands are sticking to the metal. You have to pour water over your hands to free them, which makes them even colder. Your hands are red and burning with cold pain. Snow means everything takes longer. You're trudging through snow to get anywhere. Your shoes are inadequate. Snow is getting inside them. Your feet are wet and freezing. Simple tasks become ordeals. Collecting firewood means wading through snow, finding wood that's not buried, and carrying it back. You're exhausted before you've even started the actual work of the day. Let's talk about the specific tasks that are worse than you'd ever imagine. Take hauling water, which happens multiple times a day. The well is in the courtyard. It's a deep well. You're lowering a bucket on a rope, waiting for it to fill, then hauling it back up. The rope is rough. It tears at your hands. You're pulling hand over hand, arms burning, trying to get the bucket up. The bucket is heavy when it's full. Your arms are trembling. You're bracing your feet, using your whole body to haul the bucket up. Finally, it reaches the top. You're lifting it over the edge of the well, trying not to spill any water. You've managed to splash water all over yourself. Now you're wet and cold and you have to carry this heavy bucket wherever it needs to go. You're carrying water to the kitchen. The bucket is heavy and awkward. The handle digs into your palm. You're walking slowly, trying not to slosh water everywhere. Your arm is aching. You're switching hands, but the other hand is also tired. You're halfway there, and you need to stop and rest. You set the bucket down. Your hands are cramping. You flex your fingers, pick up the bucket, and continue. By the time you reach the kitchen, you've spilled a quarter of the water, and your arms feel like they're going to fall off. And you need to do this several more times today. Laundry is even worse than previously described. Let's talk about wringing out heavy wet wool. You've washed the robes in cold water with ineffective soap. Now you need to get the water out. You're twisting the fabric with all your strength. Water streams out. Your hands are red and aching. The wool is thick and heavy. It doesn't want to release the water. You're twisting until your hands are cramping. You're making slow progress. One robe takes forever to wring out. You've got 20 robes to do. Your hands are going to be destroyed by the end of this. Then you're carrying the wet robes outside to hang them. They're dripping and heavy. You're hauling an armload of wet wool. Water is running down your arms. You're soaked. The robes are so heavy you can barely carry them. You're staggering to the drying area. Finally, you're hanging them on lines strung between posts. You're reaching up, trying to drape the heavy fabric over the line. Your arms are shaking. You drop one. It falls in the mud. Now you have to wash it again. You want to cry. Let's discuss cleaning the latrine, which is a job nobody wants but everyone has to do eventually. The latrine pit needs to be managed. It fills up. The smell intensifies. Something needs to be done. You've been assigned to latrine duty this week. You're dreading it. You put it off as long as possible. Finally, you can't avoid it anymore. You're approaching the latrine with a bucket and shovel. The smell hits you from several meters away. You're gagging. This is going to be awful. You're inside the latrine structure. The smell is overpowering. Your eyes are watering. You're trying to breathe through your mouth, but that makes you taste the smell. You're using a long-handled shovel to transfer material from the pit to the bucket. You're trying not to think about what you're handling. You're working as fast as possible. The bucket fills. You're carrying it away to dump it in the designated area far from the convent. You're walking with a bucket of human waste. The smell is following you like a cloud. Everyone you pass knows what you're carrying. You're humiliated. You make multiple trips. Each one is as bad as the first. Your clothes are splattered despite your best efforts. You reek. The smell has permeated your robe. You're going to smell like this for days. Even after the task is done and you've tried to clean yourself, the smell lingers. You're walking around smelling like the latrine. People avoid you. You avoid yourself. You're counting the days until the smell fades. Let's talk about the monotony of food preparation. You're chopping onions every single day. The same motion over and over. Your hand is cramping around the knife handle. Your eyes are streaming from the onion fumes. You can't wipe your eyes because your hands are covered in onion juice. You're blinking through tears, trying to see what you're doing. You're chopping and chopping. The pile of chopped onions grows slowly. You need a mountain of chopped onions for the pottage. You've got hours of chopping ahead of you. Or you're peeling turnips. Turnips are hard and awkward. The peel is tough. You're using a small knife to scrape the peel off. It's tedious. One turnip takes several minutes. You've got a basket of turnips to get through. Your hand is cramping. Your back hurts from bending over. You're only a quarter of the way through the basket. Time is moving backwards. You're in turnip peeling hell. Stirring the massive cauldron is exhausting. The pottage is thick. It resists stirring. You're using a paddle taller than you are. You're gripping it with both hands, pushing it through the thick mixture. The heat from the fire is intense on your face. You're sweating. Your arms are burning from the effort. You can't stop stirring because the pottage will stick to the bottom and burn. You're stirring and stirring. Your shoulders are screaming. You're wondering if this is what eternity feels like. Let's discuss the sleeping situation in more detail. You're trying to sleep on a straw mattress that's compressed to almost nothing in the middle. There's a body-shaped depression. You're lying in this depression. Your spine is at an awkward angle. Your hips are digging into the hard surface beneath. You're trying to find a comfortable position. You shift. Something pokes you. A piece of straw has worked through the fabric. It's jabbing you in the side. You shift again. Now something else is poking you. There is no comfortable position. You accept discomfort and try to sleep anyway. The dormitory is never quiet. Someone's always snoring, coughing, or moving around. Just as you're drifting off, someone has a coughing fit. You're jolted awake. Your heart is pounding. You try to calm down and sleep again. You're almost there when someone gets up for the latrine. The door creaks. Cold air rushes in. You're shivering now. You pull your inadequate blanket tighter. You're lying there, cold and miserable, waiting to fall asleep. Your mind won't shut off. You're thinking about everything you need to do tomorrow. You're thinking about the pain in your knees. You're thinking about how hungry you are. You're thinking about your family and wondering if they miss you. You're thinking about how you're never leaving this place. The thoughts spiral. You're anxious and sad. Sleep feels impossible. Eventually, exhaustion wins, and you drift off into fitful sleep filled with unpleasant dreams. You dream about food. You're at a feast with tables covered in delicious things. Roasted meat, fresh bread, pies, cakes. You're reaching for the food, but you can't quite grasp it. It's always just out of reach. You're so frustrated. You wake up disappointed and hungry. The dream made it worse. Or you dream about being free. You're outside the convent walls, walking wherever you want. You're wearing comfortable clothes. You're warm. You're happy. Then you wake up in the cold, dark dormitory. The contrast is crushing. You're back in reality. The brief moment of dream freedom makes your actual captivity feel even worse. Let's talk about the specific pain of winter mornings. You're waking up at 2 in the morning. The dormitory is freezing. You're lying under your thin blanket, dreading the moment you have to leave it. The blanket has trapped your body heat. It's the only warm thing in your universe. Leaving it means plunging into freezing air. But you have to. The bell is ringing. You're throwing off the blanket. The cold hits you like a physical blow. You're gasping. Let's examine the reality of permanent hunger in more detail. You're never truly full. Ever. The meals are small. The portions are carefully measured. You get your bowl of pottage and piece of bread, and that's it. You eat slowly, trying to make it last. You're chewing thoroughly, trying to trick your stomach into thinking it's getting more food than it is. But your stomach knows. It's not satisfied. You finish your meal, and you're still hungry. Your stomach is still growling. You're looking at your empty bowl, wishing there was more. There isn't. Between meals, the hunger builds. By mid-morning, your stomach is cramping. You're lightheaded. You're trying to work, but you can't focus. All you can think about is food. You're fantasizing about meals you used to eat. A meat pie, roasted chicken, fresh fruit, anything with flavor and substance. Your mouth is watering. But thinking about food makes the hunger worse. You try to think about something else. You can't. Food dominates your thoughts. By afternoon, the hunger is making you shaky. Your hands are trembling. You're weak. Lifting things is harder than it should be. Your body is running on empty. You're burning through what little energy the morning meal provided. There's nothing left. You're running on fumes, and you've still got hours of work ahead of you. Evening meal provides temporary relief. You're eating your pottage and bread. For 20 minutes, you're focused on the food. You're feeling slightly better. Your stomach stops cramping, but the portion is small. You finish quickly, and then the hunger starts creeping back. By bedtime, you're hungry again. You're going to sleep hungry. You'll wake up hungry. This is your permanent state. Hunger is your constant companion. The hunger affects your mood. You're irritable and short-tempered. Small annoyances feel like major problems. Someone bumps into you and you want to shove them back. You don't, because that would be violent and sinful. But you want to. You're angry all the time. The anger is just hunger in disguise. Your body is mad that it's not being fed properly. Your brain is taking it out on everything around you. The hunger affects your cognition. You're slower. You forget things. Someone tells you to do a task, and 5 minutes later, you've forgotten what it was. You're standing there, confused, trying to remember. Your brain is foggy. It's not getting enough fuel to function properly. Simple tasks take longer because you have to think harder to figure them out. The hunger affects your sleep. You're lying in bed, stomach empty and cramping. The discomfort keeps you awake. You're thinking about food. You're dreaming about food. Even your subconscious is obsessed with eating. You wake up multiple times during the night from hunger pangs. You're never getting deep, restful sleep. You're always slightly awake, slightly aware of your body's discomfort. Over time, your body adapts to chronic malnourishment. Your metabolism slows down. Your body is trying to conserve energy. You're cold all the time because your body isn't generating heat. You're tired all the time because your body is in power-saving mode. You're losing muscle mass because your body is consuming itself for energy. You're getting thinner and weaker. Your face is gaunt. Your ribs are visible. You look ill. You are ill. Malnutrition is illness, but it's treated as normal here. Everyone looks like this. Let's talk about the specific pain of specific tasks. Kneeling on stone for long periods damages your knees permanently. The repetitive impact and pressure wears away cartilage. Your knees are developing chronic problems. They're always sore. They're stiff in the morning. They crack and pop when you bend them. Stairs are agony. You're gripping the wall, hauling yourself up step by step. Your knees are protesting every movement. Going downstairs is worse. The impact sends jolts of pain through your knees. You're taking it slow, one step at a time, looking like you're ancient even though you're not. Scrubbing floors on your hands and knees adds wrist and hand problems to the mix. You're putting your weight on your hands. You're scrubbing back and forth, repetitive motion, pressure on your wrists. Your wrists are developing inflammation. They hurt constantly. Gripping things is painful. Your hands are weak. You're dropping things because you can't hold them properly. Simple tasks like holding a spoon become difficult. You're fumbling with everything. Carrying heavy loads damages your back. You're hauling buckets of water, baskets of vegetables, armloads of wood. The weight is unevenly distributed. You're compensating with your back. Your spine is being compressed. You're developing chronic back pain. It starts as a dull ache. It progresses to sharp, stabbing pain. Certain movements make it worse. Bending over is agony. Straightening up is agony. There's no comfortable position. You're in pain all the time. Repetitive motions cause overuse injuries. Your hands, wrists, elbows, shoulders. Everything hurts from doing the same movements over and over. Stirring pottage, kneading bread, scrubbing, sweeping, chopping. Every task is repetitive. Your body can't recover before you're doing it again. The injuries become chronic. They never heal. You're just accumulating damage year after year. Let's discuss the emotional toll of never being touched kindly. Humans need physical affection. Touch is important for psychological well-being. You're not getting any. The only touch you receive is accidental bumps or functional necessity. Someone grabbing your arm to steady you when you stumble. Someone's elbow in your ribs during a crowded meal. These aren't affectionate touches. They're just physical contact devoid of warmth. You're starving for a hug, for someone to hold your hand, for a comforting pat on the shoulder, for any gesture that says, "You're not alone, I care about you." But that never happens. Physical affection is forbidden. It's seen as inappropriate attachment. You're supposed to find comfort in spiritual communion, not human connection. But you're human. You need human connection. You're withering from the lack of it. You're so desperate for touch that you start seeking it in weird ways. You're petting the convent cat if there is one. You're running your hands over fabric, feeling the texture. You're touching the stone walls, connecting with something physical. It's not the same as human touch. It doesn't satisfy the need. But it's something. It's better than nothing. You're watching other nuns and feeling envious when they accidentally touch. Two nuns walking close together, their arms brushing. You're jealous of that tiny moment of contact. It's pathetic. You know it's pathetic, but you can't help it. You're so starved for physical affection that even accidental contact seems valuable. Let's talk about the cumulative effect of noise. The convent is never silent. There's always something. Bells ringing 8 times a day, footsteps echoing in stone corridors, doors creaking, people coughing, snoring at night, chanting during services, pots and pans clanging in the kitchen, the scrape of tools in the garden. The constant low-level noise wears on you. You're never in true silence, even during silent periods. Your head is always full of noise, external noise and internal noise from your own thoughts. You're craving silence, real silence, peaceful quiet, where you can hear nothing. But it never comes. Even in your cell alone, you can hear sounds from elsewhere. Footsteps in the corridor, Someone coughing in the next cell, the wind howling outside, the building itself creaking and settling. There's always noise. The bells are the worst. 8 times a day, a bell rings. It's loud, it's jarring. It interrupts whatever you're doing. It interrupts your thoughts. You're starting to hate the sound of bells. The clang reverberates through your skull. You're wincing every time it rings, but it's going to ring again in a few hours, and again, forever. You're never escaping the bells. Let's discuss the absolute lack of personal achievement or recognition. You're working hard every day. You're doing your tasks to the best of your ability, but there's no reward, no praise, no acknowledgement. If you do something well, nobody notices. If you do something wrong, everyone notices. The system is designed to catch failures, not celebrate successes. You're doing your best, and it's invisible. You're just expected to do your best. That's the baseline. Anything less is failure. Anything at the baseline is unremarkable. You're copying a manuscript perfectly, not a single error. The letters are neat and uniform. It's good work. Nobody says anything. That's what you're supposed to do. Why would anyone comment? You scrub the chapel floor until it's as clean as it can possibly be. Nobody notices. That's your job. You're supposed to scrub floors. The fact that you did it well is irrelevant. The only time anyone comments is if you miss a spot. There's no promotion, no advancement. You're not working towards anything. In normal life, you might work hard to get promoted, to earn more, to improve your circumstances. Here, your circumstances will never improve. You're at the bottom of the hierarchy, and that's where you'll stay. The only way to move up is if someone above you dies, and you've been here long enough to take their place. But even then, being in charge of the kitchen or the garden just means different work. It's not really better, it's just different responsibilities. There's no legacy. You're not creating anything that will last. You're not building anything. You're not making anything beautiful. You're just maintaining, keeping the convent running, cooking food that will be eaten and forgotten, cleaning floors that will get dirty again, copying manuscripts that already exist. Nothing you do is original or lasting. You're a cog in a machine, easily replaced, quickly forgotten. You're not contributing to the wider world. You're locked away from society. Your work benefits the convent and only the convent. You're not helping people outside the walls. You're not making a difference. You're just existing in this closed system, maintaining your own prison. The futility is crushing when you think about it, so you try not to think about it. Let's talk about the religious guilt that's constantly being reinforced. Every hardship is your fault. You're suffering because you're not faithful enough. If you were truly devoted, you'd find peace in suffering. The fact that you're miserable means you're failing spiritually. You're not trying hard enough. You're not praying sincerely enough. You're not humble enough. Your suffering is a test, and you're failing it. You're told that earthly comfort is worthless, that suffering brings you closer to holiness, that pain is purifying. So when you're in pain, you're supposed to be grateful. It's making you a better person. Except it's not. It's just making you miserable. But you can't say that. Saying that would be admitting spiritual failure. So you pretend. You nod along when these ideas are expressed. You try to convince yourself they're true, but you don't really believe it. You're constantly examining your thoughts for sin. Did you have an envious thought when someone got an easier task? Sinful. Did you resent the prioress when she criticized you? Sinful. Did you think about leaving? Extremely sinful. You're finding sin everywhere in your inner life. You're confessing constantly. You're doing penance constantly. But the sinful thoughts don't stop because they're normal human thoughts. You're being punished for being human. The guilt is exhausting. You're carrying it all the time. You're wrong. You're failing. You're not good enough. These thoughts circle in your head. You're never at peace. You're never confident. You're always second-guessing yourself. Always worried you're committing some spiritual error. The psychological weight is crushing. Let's discuss the devastating realization that this is permanent. There's a moment, maybe months or years in, when it truly hits you.